If you're looking to get into the world of automatic watches, this video is for you. Today I'm going to be showing you what I think is the best entry-level automatic watch available in 2022. This is a full-featured automatic watch that you can get for right around $200, and it easily holds its own against watches that cost double. And even if this particular watch isn't your style, there's still going to be a lot of great information in this video that will help you kind of navigate the world of automatic watches. But today we're going to be taking a look at the Orient Kamasu. Hey guys, welcome back to Just the Watch. My name's Dave. I live in Japan and I love to collect affordable watches. And today we're going to be taking a look at a watch from a Japanese brand that is well known throughout the watch world, but not as well known outside of the watch community. That brand is Orient, and they are renowned for making some of the best value watches out there. And today we'll take a look at what I think is their best value option in the Orient Kamasu, and I'm going to give you 5 reasons why I think it makes the best first automatic watch available right now. But just because I think this is the best first automatic watch, it doesn't mean it's necessarily the best first watch for you. A watch is a very personal thing, and if the style of this watch isn't one that you'll wear, it's not going to be the best watch for you. But as we go through these 5 things, this will help you to figure out what you might be looking for when you try and branch out and look at some other options out there. And there are some other great options. One of the best things about the Orient Kamasu is the price. At $200, I feel like it gives you more than any other watch on the market right now. And while you can find automatic watches for under $200, you're going to start seeing some corners cut, and you're going to be losing some features that I think are pretty important. Now, at this $200 price range, the Orient Kamasu does have some competitors, 2 in particular, one being Seiko with their Seiko 5 Sports line, and the second being the rise of cheap automatic watches from China. Both of those have their pluses and minuses, and I'd like to take a look at that more in depth in a future video, but for today, I want to talk about 5 reasons why I think the Orient Kamasu is a step ahead of those other options. So let's jump right into it, starting with our first reason, and that is that the Orient Kamasu comes from a brand that has a reputation for making reliable, high-quality timepieces. If you're looking to get your first automatic watch, chances are you're looking to kind of step out of the kind of disposable watch mindset. Before I started collecting watches, whenever I did wear a watch or buy a watch, I kind of looked at it like a piece of clothing. It was something I expected would probably wear out after a year or two, and then I would throw it away and maybe buy a new one. But when I started looking into getting my first automatic watch, my thinking completely changed. I wanted to get something that would last for many years. I was looking to spend a little bit more money and get something that I could use for a long time. But just because a watch has an automatic movement inside of it doesn't necessarily mean that it is going to last you a long time. If you go on Amazon, you're going to find a ton of automatic watches available for around $50, but most of those have very low quality Chinese movements inside of them. They probably don't have very good build quality, not very good straps, and they're not really going to last you very long. However, the Orient Kamasu is a very reliable watch that comes from a very reputable Japanese watch manufacturer. Orient has been in the business of making automatic watches for well over 50 years. They make their own automatic movements in Japan, and they have a great track record from making high-quality, reliable timepieces. They're a part of the Seiko Epson group, so they're kind of a sister company to Seiko. And while they're independent from Seiko, you can expect a pretty similar level of quality to Seiko watches. And when it comes to reliability and brand heritage, I think at this $200 price point, there's no brands that come close to Orient and Seiko. And while Seiko does offer a couple of watches in this price range that you should probably also check out, this Orient has a few things going for it that in my mind push it to the top of the list when it comes to best entry-level automatic watches. Moving on to the second reason why I think the Orient Kamasu is such a great watch, and that is that it has a great automatic movement inside of it. Obviously, when you're looking to get an automatic watch, one of the most important factors to consider is the automatic movement inside of the watch. The quality of the movement is going to determine how well the movement performs, how accurate it's going to be. It's going to determine how long the movement's going to last before it breaks down and requires servicing. And if you get a low quality movement, you might not even be able to get it repaired. And oftentimes cheaper movements are going to lack some of the features that you really want out of a good automatic movement. The Orient Kamasu features the caliber F6922, and this is a movement that Orient designed and manufactures themselves. And this is kind of rare. Most watch manufacturers will buy movements from a different manufacturer who specializes in making movements. So it really says something about Orient as a company that they're capable of not only manufacturing their own watches, but also designing and manufacturing the movements inside of them. And this movement is a full-featured entry-level movement. When the watch is fully wound, it will run for 40 hours off the wrist. So if you take it off at night or even for a day and a half, it'll still be keeping accurate time the next time you pick it up to put it on. And if the watch does run down, it also features hand winding, so you can wind it yourself without having to kind of shake it to get it started. To aid in setting the watch accurately, it also features hacking, which means that when you pull the crown out, the second hand will stop, allowing you to synchronize it precisely to a reference time. And the accuracy on this movement is actually really good. Out of the factory, Orient claims that these movements will run between -15 seconds and +25 seconds per day. Now, admittedly, those aren't great numbers there, but most of the time you're going to get something a lot more accurate than that. Those are just kind of the widest range that Orient predicts you might get. And noticeably, that's a much better accuracy than Seiko claims on their far more popular Seiko NH35 movement. The Seiko NH35 is one of the most widely used movements in the world, but Seiko only claims that that one will be giving you between -20 and +40 seconds per day out of the factory. Finally, the F6922 also offers both a day and date display, which is a nice little handy complication. For me personally, I can't really stand a watch that doesn't have a date complication on it. For me, having a watch is primarily a functional thing, and I find myself almost needing it to tell the date more often than to tell the time. So all in all, this is one of the best, most reliable, full-featured movements you can get in this price range. Now, before moving on to reason number 3, quick plug for my t-shirt shop. If you go to justthewatch.com, you can pick up this shirt along with a lot of other cool designs. If you're like me, you can't afford a luxury watch, but maybe you can afford a t-shirt that has some cool luxury watches on it. So be sure to go check it out. All right, now moving on to reason number 3 why I think the Orient Kamasu is such a great watch, and that is that it has a sapphire crystal. I think a sapphire crystal is one of the most important things you can get on a wristwatch. A sapphire crystal is basically impossible to scratch. And for the longest time, I just could not stand a watch that had a scratched piece of glass over the face of it. It's something that I would notice every time I checked the time, and I would think, man, I need to get a new watch now. Now, as I've gotten more into watch collecting, I've actually grown a little bit more tolerant to that. But even still, if I have a choice between a watch with a sapphire crystal and a mineral crystal, all other things being equal, I'm always going to take the sapphire crystal. And this is one of those areas where Orient really distinguishes itself from its big brother Seiko. While Seiko does offer some similarly styled watches to this for around the same price, those are all going to have hardlex crystals or mineral crystals, which are going to be much more susceptible to scratching. So the fact that Orient opted to put a sapphire crystal in this watch, in my opinion, really puts it above the Seiko offerings at the same $200 price range. And unless you're buying a watch direct from China from some of the Chinese brands, you're almost never going to find a sapphire crystal in this price range. And while a lot of those Chinese brands are going to give you an amazing set of specs for the price, you're typically not going to get the same level of reliability, quality control, or after-sales service that Orient can offer. Reason number 4 why the Orient Kamasu is such a great watch, and that is that it is a dive watch. Now, dive watches aren't just for divers. They have a ton of features and functions built into them that make them some of the best everyday watches available. Dive watches are generally considered to be one of the most popular styles of watches, and that's for a pretty good reason. Given their original purpose is for diving, they are incredibly rugged watches, and yet modern divers in particular often are very versatile, with many styles of dive watches being suitable for both casual or sports wear as well as business attire. And that's the category that this Orient Kamasu certainly fits in. It's a handsome, modestly sized watch that is incredibly rugged and well built. This watch features 200 meters of water resistance, which effectively means it's completely waterproof. If you wanted to take this watch scuba diving with you, it would be able to handle it no problem. One of the features that helps keep the water out is the screw-down crown, which locks the crown in place, creating a very tight seal in the watch, as well as making sure that it won't pop out accidentally and let water in. And this high level of water resistance combined with the screw-down crown are two features that Seiko's comparable offerings don't have. The Seiko 5 Sports Dive Watch only features 100 meters of water resistance with a push-pull crown. This watch also features a timing bezel, which is a unidirectional rotating ring around the outside of the watch, allowing you to measure how much time has elapsed since you set it up to 1 hour. To start it, all you have to do is rotate the ring until the triangle lines up with wherever the minute hand is on the dial at that time, and from then on, the minute hand will point on that bezel to the number of minutes that have elapsed since you set it. The original purpose for this is so that divers could time decompression stops, but it turns out it's also one of the most useful things you can have on a watch, as you can use it to time just about anything very quickly and very intuitively. The bezel on this watch is a 120 click unidirectional rotating bezel with a light kind of springy action that's very similar to Seiko bezels if you've ever tried one of those. Finally, as a dive watch, this watch also features excellent after dark legibility. The hands and markers both have a luminous paint that absorbs light during the daytime and then glows extremely brightly when you go into a dark room or at night. And I mean, it's extremely bright. One of the things I love to do on my channel is test how good lume is on various watches. I even created my own scoring system to evaluate how good lume is on a watch. And with a score of 13, this watch is going to outperform most other watches on the market. It's better lume than what Seiko offers on their entry-level watches, and honestly, this level of brightness is probably going to hold its own with watches that cost thousands of dollars. So if you like things that glow in the dark, this one's really going to be fun for you. Finally, the fifth reason why I think the Orient Kamasu is such a great watch, and that is that it has an original design and a great style. When it comes to style and comfort, this watch has a lot going for it. I would classify this as kind of a dress diver or a desk diver, as a lot of people call them. So it's a watch that has the functions and the ruggedness of a dive watch, but it has a little bit more elegant, versatile style that allows you to get away with wearing it in almost any situation. The size is somewhat modest with a case diameter of just under 42 millimeters. However, that's combined with a somewhat narrow lug-to-lug of only 46 millimeters, which will allow it to wear on a pretty wide range of wrists. So even if you have a smaller wrist size, this will probably still fit you pretty well. It comes on a solid link metal bracelet, which is both completely waterproof and also looks very nice. That combined with the elegant style of the hands, markers, and dial really make this a watch that's suitable for almost any attire. It's not going to look out of place being worn with a suit, but it'll also look great while you're wearing jeans and a t-shirt. On this green color in particular, I really love the look of the dial. It's a deep, dark ocean green with a slight sunburst effect that really plays with the light. The watch also features very high quality hands and markers that overall give it a very premium look. There's a lot of watches that look kind of cheap when you get them in person. This doesn't. It's a very high quality timepiece. Another thing that I like about this is that even though it's a very safe design, it feels very familiar. It is basically an original design. There's a lot of watches that are just trying to kind of copy what Rolex is doing. And while a lot of people do find that appealing, for me personally, I would much rather have a watch that just has its own style and doesn't look like it obviously wants to be a different watch. And so in my mind, this is another thing that would really set this watch apart from a lot of the Chinese watches that you find out there. So many of those are basically one-to-one copies of expensive Swiss watches. Orient's not going crazy and reinventing the wheel here, but they're also definitely not just copying someone else. Finally, this watch is very comfortable on the wrist. All of the parts are high quality. It's finished well. There's not any sharp edges. The bracelet doesn't pinch any hairs on my wrist or anything like that. And at 13 millimeters tall, it's not overly thick or heavy either. Overall, it's a great versatile watch that you can wear every day without any problems. So those are my 5 reasons why I think the Orient Kamasu is such a great watch, but it's not a perfect watch. There are a couple of things to be aware of, and I'd be remiss if I didn't point out some of the drawbacks that this watch has. First off, the crown is a little bit on the small side. That, along with the fact that it features some kind of high crown guards that really wrap around it, make it kind of difficult to get a hold of the crown and adjust the time. It'll also make winding the watch just a little bit more difficult than it needs to be, but this is more of a minor annoyance than a big problem. I also find that the bezel on this watch is a little bit slippery. It's kind of hard to grip and turn. Not terrible, but it could be better there. From a design standpoint, I think I would have preferred they went with a 20 millimeter bracelet instead of a 22 millimeter. I think those 22 millimeter lugs kind of give the watch a bit of a wide stance, and this could have been helped if the bracelet had a bit more of a taper to it. Again, more of a nitpick than anything. Finally, this watch does feature hollow end links and a pretty basic stamped clasp. And while this is completely acceptable for a watch in this price range, I mean, most watches in this price range, this is exactly what you're going to find. When so much about this watch punches well above its price range, it feels a little bit disappointing to see those two features kind of left in there. Now, the biggest problem with this watch when you're looking for your first automatic watch isn't necessarily a flaw, but this watch does have a closed case back, so you cannot see the automatic movement inside of it. From a functionality standpoint, this is a good thing. It usually means the watch is going to be sturdier and more secure, and potentially a little bit thinner than if it had a glass case back. But if you've never had an automatic watch before, being able to see the movement work is incredibly appealing, so it's unfortunate that you are unable to see it in this watch. So those negatives aside, I think the Orient Kamasu still comes out ahead of pretty much any other watch out there when it comes to people looking to buy their first automatic watch. Getting a watch from a brand like Orient is going to give you a lot of peace of mind. You're going to be able to get great after-sales service, and that's something that really pushes it ahead of the AliExpress or Chinese watches. Once you get a little bit deeper into the hobby, I think those are great ones to check out. There's some amazing deals there. But for your first automatic watch, I'd be more comfortable going with a brand like Orient. Now, Seiko arguably has the better brand reputation than Orient. However, at this price, Orient outspecs it on almost every level. Compared to the Seiko 5 Sports models, you're getting a Sapphire Crystal, 200 meters of water resistance, a screw-down crown, and better lume. So for those reasons, if you're in the market for your first automatic watch, I think the Orient Kamasu should definitely be the first one to take a look at. But if you want to check out something slightly different than the Kamasu, something a little bit bigger, Orient actually has another option that's very similarly priced, very similarly spec'd. You can check out my review of that watch right here. Okay guys, thanks for watching. That's going to wrap it up for today. If you think there's a better first automatic watch out there than the Orient Kamasu, drop me a comment down below. Let me know what you think. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, I invite you to do so. Thanks for watching. I'll see you later.